We are live with Greg Foss and my little brother Nicholas Caradza. He's 5 years younger.
I don't
He is my
little.
brother.
It's younger.
Yes,
It's younger.
he's not littler. You guys are both built like...
No, little brother. You're younger.
Yeah,
You're my
that's
little
right.
brother. I'm the older brother. I can still beat you
Younger
up.
is
Not
the right
little
name.
anymore. It doesn't work. After a certain period of time, that rule goes away. But that rule, it does exist for a
No,
while.
older brothers can always. Greg, do you have any siblings? I don't know.
I have a younger brother as well.
Yeah,
3
and
years.
you could probably
you still beat him
your
up?
younger brother.
I wouldn't challenge him to a fight. Let's put it that way. So,
See, he's being nice. He knows he could beat him up. He doesn't want to have that on record. I'm fine with it, Nick. That's how it works. Our 82-year-old father still thinks he can beat both of us
correct.
up.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
correct.
yeah.
And by the way, he should, because if you ever hit your father, I'll come after you guys.
Yeah, that's true.
That's never happened.
Yeah,
believe me.
no, that's never happened. Yeah, one time when I think I was like 17, he tackled me and another one of our friends.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And sat on us and started laughing.
He got both somehow he got each of them with one arm behind their back, tied behind their back, and he got them both lying down on the ground.
Love it.
And he's calling me. He's like, look, and he's laughing at them. He's like, look at these guys. What do they know?
Yeah, but I have respect for my elders, so I let him do
I
that.
see.
That's
Except I watched the whole thing. You guys didn't let him do anything.
No, we totally did. That was me and Will. I'll never forget. Greg, we can talk about anything that you want, but I do have some things. I just kind of almost want to go through like a rapid fire of everything.
Oh, I see the first one. There's bond market.
No, but before we do that, it's my son's 20th birthday today, and you have 3 kids in their 20s, and I think it's almost like a new life perspective for me, because when you have a 20-year-old, it's like I just feel like time's moving quick.
Interesting. Well, congrats, first of all. So happy birthday to your son.
And then so just congrats to you to have 3 in their 20s, man.
Yeah. And well, here's the congrats is that they actually still hang out with me, which is cool, right? Because, there's family issues with a lot of kids. The first thing they want to do is leave home. My oldest son is playing professional hockey in France, but then he comes home and he hangs out at home, and it's just like, it's fun, right? We shoot the breeze and talk about different stuff. But yes, it goes fast. I can seriously remember the day he was born, because I was working on a trading desk, and 2 things. One, my good friend bought us a jumpsuit. The first jumpsuit that I ever got was from our bond desk.
A jumpsuit?
Well, you know what I mean? Not jumpsuit, a pajama thing.
Oh.
Whatever. When you pack these kids in these little
I thought you were going skydiving or something.
Well, when you pack the kids in these little suits that they can sleep in.
Oh,
and,
got it. Yeah.
And then, so that was 26 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Steve Kressler, if you're out there, I still remember you,
that's
buddy.
Cool.
That's 28 years ago. He was 26 years ago. Steve Kressler was one of the best analysts, credit analysts in Canada, and we made a ton of money on Stelco bonds because of Steve Kressler. Stelco had an interesting history, and one of the reasons I bring up Stelco is because I was just up north at one of our power plants, Validus Power. We have a power plant in North Bay, and one of the guys that works for us used to work for Stelco, and I said jokingly, I bought your bonds at 25 cents on the dollar, and everyone, oh, you're the asshole that made us go bankrupt. No, we bought it at 25 cents on the dollar. You guys never did go bankrupt the first time around. And then, we did well at getting clients into those bonds, etc. But then the second time around, they actually did hit the wall. So,
what made your buddy there one of the best analysts?
Oh, so he started, he just had, when I say the best analysts, there were no credit analysts in Canada at the time. They were all equity analysts, but he switched from the equity side of analysis to the debt side. So he became a credit analyst. And, in tipping my hat to the gentleman who started our group, he realized, you better not trade bonds if you don't know what the heck you're buying and selling from a credit perspective. Like, what's the recovery rate on Stelco bonds in the event of a liquidation? And if it's not liquidated, what's the proper yield that these bonds should be trading at? Anyway, Steve Kressler, let's not get too far into this, but 26 years ago, bought my kid a gift,
a onesie.
Yeah, a onesie. There you go. But more importantly, we bought a ton of Stelco bonds, and I was able to put my kids through college with with some of those trades.
Just think, if he's 26 now and he lives on, which he will with healthcare and everything, another 75 years, he's going to go through into the next century. Your oldest son, because he's 26. Am I doing that?
Yeah.
No,
Right.
you're not doing it right because he was
Oh,
born in
sorry, it's
1992.
22. Yeah, it's the year's 2022. I'm
Yeah.
totally not doing that math right. I failed math
over,
right in
just
front
It's
of
over.
okay,
Greg
but
Foss.
that's okay. That's all right because at least
But
you tried. At least you tried. Okay, most people don't even try doing math. So,
No engineering program for you.
At least you tried. No, it's so true. Okay, so let's go into it. I have a bunch of questions
Sure.
for you.
And now we're going to talk about bonds. You could barely.
Yeah, I can barely do that basic math, and now we're going to talk about bonds. But so, what do you think? What are your thoughts on today's bond market? Like, where are we headed just from what you're seeing happen right now?
all right. Well, let's talk about some interesting stuff that happened in the last 2 days. Firstly, yesterday, the U.S. Department. I'm drawing a blank. Department of whoever releases the CPI. Not CPI,
Like GDP?
GDP number, released that the U.S. economy contracted, okay, 1.4%. Let's make sure we understand what that means. Not only is the economy not growing more slowly, it's actually shrinking, okay, people?
What was
So,
the time frame for that? Was that
3
was
months.
Q1.
They always
was
they always
Q1,
do, yeah.
right?
So it's a Q1 number. The second thing to point out for the listeners is to understand that the definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of contraction. All right. I know you don't need my help with this, but to make sure we're on the same page, we're halfway into a recession. Okay, people? Now, all the spin doctors out there are saying things like, oh, this is a one-off supply chain, consumer spending still remains strong.
COVID was prevalent again. So
No, well, yes and no. Oh, yeah, true.
Right,
I'm sorry,
early
Nick.
in the
yeah,
year,
okay,
yeah.
but here's the bigger picture. Don't listen to these people, okay? The U.S. dollar is strengthening so quickly that third world and emerging market economies are guaranteed to go into recession. And when that happens, the U.S. doesn't sell as many of their services or products into these emerging economies. This is not a outlier event, in my opinion. Now, how many times has the Fed raised rates so far? Once, correct. Good answer. They're going to do it another 9 times, they say. What's the likelihood that they do that? In my opinion, almost zero. Okay, especially into a contracting economy, even if it's a 1/4 contraction and then we pick up into growth again. The truth is, inflation at 8.5% should require not just 9 times of the Fed increasing rates, probably 20 times. Okay, Paul Volcker did this in the early 1980s to combat inflation. The last time CPI was at 8.5%, U.S. 10-year yields were double digits. Well, to get U.S. 10-years to double digits, you'd have to raise rates in the short term to at least 7%. Hence, 20 further increases of 1/4 to 50 basis points. Do the math. I'm not making this up. Anyway, the reality or the potential of that happening is almost zero, in my opinion, because the Fed has a dual mandate, don't they? Fight inflation and full employment. Well, guess what? When you're going into a recession, you're not going to have full employment anymore. Now, the part that they won't be able to do is fight inflation. Okay. Bonds are the worst investment. I think I told you when I first got on your podcast that bonds were a horrible investment when I first got on your podcast. And we've hopefully saved some people some money, okay? Because bonds have absolutely pooped the bed, okay? It's been the worst performance in bond market history in the last year.
I think I remember having a billionaire next to you in Miami on the stage.
Oh, and he
telling
said that,
you,
yeah.
agreeing with you, or saying it on his own,
he
or
did.
whatever.
He said it on his own, but that and his name is Ricardo Salinas, okay, and he's a beautiful man, and none of that was staged. He said exactly the same thing, basically. What's the best thing that could happen if you own a bond? You get your money back. I mean, it was beautiful, and we're going to walk through that math in a second, but the truth is, everyone's wondering what the Fed's going to do. The Fed is doing nothing but job owning the market right now. They're trying to talk down inflation, but the truth is they've raised by 25 basis points, and what's happened? Well, we do have 1/4 of negative growth under our belt. Most importantly, the U.S. dollar has strengthened beyond all belief, and you're going to see the trickle-down effect of global slowing because of a strong U.S. dollar. It's a problem when you are the world reserve currency, okay? It's called Triffin's dilemma, blah, blah, blah. We all know what it is. Listen, bonds in all scenarios are a horrible investment. And then they'll say, well, I want to own bonds because the Fed is going to do QE infinity. Okay, own Bitcoin instead. I want to own bonds because the Fed is going to have to buy long bonds and peg yield curves. Buy Bitcoin instead. Every single reason you would buy bonds is twice the reason you would buy Bitcoin. More importantly, bonds still have asymmetry to the downside. Because if they in fact do lose their mind and try and raise rates 9 consecutive times, bonds have another 20% downside.
Don't you think they're going to have to do this half point raise, because I feel if they don't, they're going to lose so much face.
They don't have to do anything. And by the way,
I know they don't, but don't you think they're still going to out of stupidity?
Okay,
like they're just
we're talking about what they're going to do next week. So most likely they're going to raise. Watch what happens to equities. Okay, we're already seeing what's happening to equities. Equities are very precarious right now. Okay, especially growth equities. You've seen the Amazon print yesterday. That number was horrible. Amazon is now at 2-year lows in terms of their stock market value. 2-year lows.
Excuse me. Did you see the chart last night for Amazon?
Yeah, I did.
But anyway, so
the Apple numbers came out. The Apple numbers were really strong. I know
they were strong. It's their guidance is horrible. And nobody buys it for what they did the last 3 months. It's what they're looking to the future.
But hold on, just with these bond things for a second. Here's my question around this stuff, because if they let it, so let's say they lose their minds and they raise, right? And the bonds still have, the downside potential. I just don't see how much they can do that for one other reason. That reason is these pension funds and all these guys that own these bonds, these large institutional funds, they'll get hammered.
The Fed mandate, let me be clear what the Fed mandate is, and it has nothing to do with pension funds. The Fed mandate is to fight inflation and full employment, okay? If you're stupid enough, you're a pension fund and you have long duration bonds going into this, you can't fix stupid, okay? The bond holder, it's buyer beware. It's basically whatever that I'm losing the Latin word for that, but
they're just allocating their investments. They have to own a certain percentage of bonds, and they're going into bonds, and it doesn't matter.
Whose fault is that? It ain't the Fed's fault, okay? And by the way, it's not the Fed's fault that all these clowns pushed rates down to levels that for 40 years we've had a decreasing interest rate environment.
What is the yield curve that you see now telling you about
nothing?
The economy?
Because it's all controlled.
Okay, all right.
It's all manipulated.
So then, what do you think? If you just had a bit of a crystal,
so let's summarize.
Yes.
Don't own bonds. Still don't own bonds. Don't listen to Steven Van Meter on Twitter. Every reason I've sat down with Steven. Every reason that he is trading bonds, he doesn't want to own the 30-year bond for the next 30 years. He'll admit that to you. Every reason he owns the 30-year right now, it's better to own Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, some of these guys are owning because they're trying to make a trade. They think that
Raul, same thing. His whole life is spent a global macro guy. I'm going to pick up this nickel in front of this steamroller.
Yeah, they're going to try and time it.
There's better ways to risk your money and your assets at this point. And this is my opinion. That's what makes a market. He's a seller. He's a buyer. I'm a seller. We'll see who's right.
Sure.
And how you allocate that within a portfolio of other assets. Ultimately, it's what your blended return is. It's not just what one return is on one asset allocation.
So if you had to guess, what do you think the Fed's going to do later throughout this year? Because I think the story that we've all kind of heard is they're going to continue to raise. I know the midterm elections are in the fall, but if you had to guess, how does this play out over the next 18 months?
One and done.
Really?
One and done.
Wow.
Then they recoil and they cover their ass and say, oh, Putin's to blame.
Wow.
I've never seen so much grandstanding and incompetent, despite the fact that fucking Biden can't say 2 words together without losing his train of thought. Mm-hmm. They try and get him.
I feel badly at this point that he's even in that role.
I don't feel badly. You get what you reap what you sow what you reap, or you reap what you sow. Look, he got elected. He has 4 years there. I don't think he should drive a truck or a car, let alone be manager of the biggest economy in the world. But that's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you say it that way, it's pretty clear. So you think one and done? Wow. Yeah, and
Well,
but maybe they jawbone enough. But maybe they jawbone enough. They say, "Hey, we're going to do it, and we're gonna raise again. We're gonna be ready." But then, to Greg's point, the story's just, "Oh, we can't right now because of this."
Yeah, well, the Bank of Canada is painting themselves in a corner right now.
Bank of Canada is a rounding error. They actually are used as a test net for what the Fed does.
No, I know, but for a lot of the people that we work with from the real estate investors,
the Canadian real estate market looks at the Bank of
Canada.
They
have to. But here's the funny thing.
But they're painting themselves in a corner because they keep talking a big game, and they're either going to lose space. They're either going to lose space in June.
They're doing the same as the Fed.
I agree, but I think in June they have to raise again or they're going to lose space. And I think that, and I think that's it.
Canada is a rounding error in the global
for global markets, 100%. Yeah.
So don't overthink. But then
on that note, I'm just curious. Do you think Canada will raise in June?
I don't even look. I don't care. They don't matter to me. They can do whatever they want.
The longer term and the bigger picture.
The bigger picture
is set by the U.S.
Rates in the U.S. 10-year, in my opinion, cannot go above 4%. At 4%, things start to break. Okay.
And where are they right now in the 10-year?
In the 10-year, let's use 3% as a number. Okay. And 4% is between the 10 and the 30-year. Yield curve shape doesn't matter to me at this point. The point is, what is the blended cost of debt for the U.S. government?
And at 4%, it breaks because
of the debt burden that the USA already has. They cannot meet those interest expenses.
It seems so simple to me.
That's grade 11 math.
Because of you, I think the way you've articulated it, we kind of understood some of these things, but the way you've articulated it, I'm like, why does no one look at the second order effect of increasing these rates?
Because they don't want them to, because they can't come out and say, oh, guys, by the way, we're going to raise rates, but we can't really raise them that high because we can't afford our payments.
But a basic journalist can say, okay, you raise rates.
No, that's the funny thing. They get brainwashed by everything. Just like when I started at the Royal Bank, as I mentioned, in 1988, and equity analysts still hadn't done the very simple calculation as to what the true book value of equity of the Royal Bank of Canada was. You'd think they would have done that, but clearly they don't.
What do you think then? So then I think I know the answer to this, but then what do you think we are seeing in the yen continues now?
Yeah.
Like this is how you've always said, the U.S. dollar will be the last fiat standing, but around the edges and the peripheries, they'll start going down.
They're all melting.
Is this what we're seeing
it
with
right
the yen?
now? This is crazy what's happening with the yen.
The Bank of Japan announced I think it's unlimited.
Okay, but what does that mean to the Fed, who is a trading partner of Japan? It means they will not export products. If they have stuff that's competing one-to-one with a product called a car that's made in North America versus a car that's made in Japan, and the price of the car from Japan has just fallen by 10%, so you can buy a Toyota or you can buy a Ford, and the Toyota price has dropped by 10%, lots of people are going to buy the Toyota, not the Ford.
That's why there were so many Kias sold here from South Korea.
Could be, but this is all called beggar thy neighbor strategy, okay? This is about using your foreign exchange or your currency as a trade enhancer.
So play that out for me then. What happens?
It's a race to the bottom. Every currency is melting. Some of them want to melt faster than others because the policy, like in Japan, is trying to bail you out using trade surplus, etc. But the reality is, it can't continue.
Does the U.S. put up some tariffs on Japanese cars?
It could be, but that tariffs are
no, I got it. Temporary. It doesn't work, but I mean that could be a reaction.
No question. But then all this free trade stuff and everything, you become more protectionist. More protectionist means more inflation. More inflation is what they're trying to fight right now because it's actually posted at 8.5% year over year.
Yeah.
The reality is it's probably double that.
All our readings through history tell us that trade wars usually lead to shooting wars. And it's kind of...
Okay, so we've had a lot of bad news. I have some good news for you. Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Okay, come on. Let's pull this back to why.
No, and I think I'm overall positive, and I think everyone knows that for sure. I'm just I'm just kind of playing this out in my mind.
Let's not talk war though, because we are experiencing one right now, and it's horrible for the people in Eastern Europe and all that stuff. But this is what happens. Like everyone's. I got to be careful. I have enough Twitter enemies right now as it is, but the reality is people need to study history, right? And there's lots of people in Canada that think communism is the solution. If you think communism
the
is the
pendulum
solution,
swings, and
why
people
don't
think that.
why don't we make sure we see what's going on with Russia right now? Okay, so go ahead.
So then the yen. So is the euro headed?
Same. It's
Same,
all
the
same
same fate, and I know I just like hearing you kind of articulate it.
Yeah,
so we're headed to the same fate with the euro.
Well, why? Because everyone's doing quantitative easing, and the value of the currency in quantitative easing is the only thing that satisfies the closed loop called the debt spiral. So as you do QE into a debt spiral, you need to print more money. When you print more money, the value of the currency goes down. Okay? Debases. Well, everybody's doing QE. Every single fiat is debasing. It's a race to the bottom, as it's been for the last 100 years.
I had a weird experience yesterday. I was listening to the Twitter Spaces with the guys and girls from Panama, and when they started talking about how they took some of the legislation language from El Salvador and used that as the basis to get some stuff passed in Panama, and they were starting to get emotional a little bit, talking about how they weren't going to be oppressed anymore. And I don't know why, Greg. I got a bit emotional.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Listening.
What was the tally, by the way? Did you see what the tally was when
on the votes?
I
feel like I do know it, and I can't recall it.
You know what it was, Nick?
No, you know.
I do.
Oh, what is it?
40-0.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was unanimous.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. Okay. This is.
Did you hear the politician or the gentleman from Nigeria on there? Were you listening?
I listened to a bit of it.
Okay.
No, but I didn't listen to that. I was on a Spaces earlier that day that.
I listened to you on that Spaces.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
man, I need to tone it down, guys. I apologize to some of the listeners. Some of the stuff I said that it gets me. It gets me some likes, but the truth is, look, we are being. I use an expression.
Listen, I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
I think that people who know you know your heart is pure and your intentions are pure. The way you sometimes articulate points, Greg, comes out in the Greg Foss style, and sometimes that's required for people to understand.
Then I'm gonna put it on
point.
I'm gonna put this on to. So we're gonna put a bow. We're gonna wrap the bond market in a bow with the expression I used on the Spaces con. You can delete this if you want. You are getting screwed in both orifices, okay, with the bond market. You are earning a below market yield to what you should be earning when inflation is 8.5%. You are getting 3%. So there you are losing 5.5% annually on the investment, correct? In real terms. So 8.5 minus 3 is negative 5% real return in your bonds. And more importantly, and this is what Ricardo Salinas said on stage, it's a shit coin. You're giving them $100.
He did say that, Nick. I don't know if you heard that, but he's a Mexican billionaire.
Yeah.
He basically said it's a shit coin.
The US dollar is a shit coin, okay? And he basically then said, you give them $100 at time zero, and you're most likely, we talk about this, going to get your.
We're still good. We're good.
Okay, you're going to get your $100 back in 10 years, right? But that value of that $100 is $65. Okay, so you're getting a below market yield, and your currency is being debased. You're getting it at both ends, and it's a horrible investment. Now, look, mom and dad out there that still own bonds, I know it worked well for you for 40 years. That's because interest rates went from 14% in the USA in 1985 down to under 1%. They're not going in that direction anymore, people. That's why.
The positive. Go on. Sorry.
Well, that's why you got to be careful when you own bonds. If you own bonds, make sure they're very short duration. They are basically a cash proxy, but we know then you're only getting screwed on one end. Okay?
Listening to my son's friends who are all 19, 20, that age, Greg, I think would give you some positive outlook, because listening to them talk, they don't even, bonds to them is something.
They never were, though.
No, I know. But you know what? But
okay,
you know what they
ahead.
do seem to care about is they are learning about Bitcoin, and that is forcing them to learn about monetary policy at
Beautiful.
an age that I never thought I would hear them discuss.
Isn't that brilliant?
Monetary
That's
policy.
brilliant. Okay.
So there is a younger generation that's coming up that's having discussions that I think would make you feel really good.
I already feel good when I talk to the young kids, right? Some of these kids, that are in their 20s are so damn smart.
Yeah.
And I look
We
back and I go,
were joking about that in the real estate market.
Yeah. What did I know when I was mid 20s? I knew zero.
I got to tell you this really quick. When we were getting into real estate in our 20s, we thought we were magical when we figured out Hamilton, you could rent a property and get this much income and the expenses were this much. Even though we lived in Mississauga, everyone made fun of Hamilton. That was the politics, right?
Yeah.
And we went out there and people made fun of us and we're like, no, this is brilliant. The income is greater than the expenses.
Attaboy. Yeah.
Now we have 20-year-old investors. They're buying houses, severing the lot, selling it one part off to another person to fund the purchase and rebuild of this lot, creating a perfectly new built dual unit, getting crazy cash flow. And they're like late 20s doing this kind of stuff. And we're looking, thinking we were brilliant.
Well, no, everything's relative, right? Because, you incidentally, you talked about your son turning 20. 2 nights ago, I went to Burlington for the unveiling of the Foss mobile.
I saw the picture.
Okay, crazy that it was 125 years ago that first gasoline car in Canada was invented. And by the way, my uncle said, it'll never catch on. Now, he was 21 years old. He was smart enough to build a car. He just wasn't smart enough to go into business with Henry Ford, okay? And Henry Ford did ask him. He said, your design is better than mine. And he said, yeah, but this will never catch on.
Just need more horses.
Yeah, we need a faster horse. No, if as Henry Ford said, if you had asked me what the population wanted in the, at the beginning of, the 1900s, they wanted a faster horse. They didn't want a car. They wanted a faster horse, right? So anyway, you got to be careful. There's lots of people know what they know. And then the dangerous person is the person who doesn't know what he doesn't know, okay? And so be careful listening to kids that are, 28 years old, but have never actually sat in a risk chair and, actually experienced it, right?
I don't know if I've heard your thoughts on this before. Where do you think some of the US dollar stable coins kind of play in the next few years? And I know it's still fiat. Like I understand, but I do see the velocity of people using that thing kind of picking up. What are your thoughts? I don't know if I've heard you discuss that.
I don't discuss it because I don't have a thought. I mean, I know they use it as an onboarding platform, but I don't care. It's not something that I care about. I don't do yield farming. I don't believe that the counterparty risk in yield farming is worth the risk of the collapse. And I think you need to be very careful. I'm more convinced than ever it's Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And
so then, okay, so and we are the same, or definitely I am the same, Nick. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm definitely the same. So, but when I think this out a little bit, I guess banking is going to have to change quite a lot because if I have
banks are done.
Agreed. But just done. Banking in general, because if I have if I own some Bitcoin in a wallet, and then I want to do some banking with Bitcoin as the base of some sort of banking,
then there'll have to be a whole new bank.
There really is because the identification that I would have to provide, if I have a wallet, like nobody really knows the identification.
I hope I'm around in 20 years so that we're sitting at this table, the four of us, the three of us plus your son, who's going to be 40, is going to be looking at us and saying, you guys are knuckleheads. Didn't you see how this was going to unfold 20 years ago? And I'm not certain how it is, but I tell you for sure that I would not want to be the CEO of a commercial bank.
Yeah, I agree.
In the next 20 years. Okay. I mean, they're going to make a lot of fiat money and they're going to rape their shareholders for a salary that they don't deserve because, but
I feel it's a lot sooner. That's just my opinion.
But everyone has an opinion. That's
and that's all I'm saying.
But in 20 years, I'm talking about sitting here and talking with your son because his life won't, we know for sure, God, let's hope that he lives for the next 20 years. I know he will. The point is, that is certainty, that time measurement. Whatever happens within that time measurement is the uncertain
for sure.
part, right?
Okay, so then I wanted to ask you about that. I lost my train of thought just thinking about my son being 40. Kind of
stable coins you started with. I'm looking at the rest, and then you said equity market. We can probably talk about the equity market, but did you want to?
Yeah, no, I was just
decentralized DeFi.
No, and I know you're kind of, but I'm just wondering because I see us kind of having to create a new banking system, and I guess it's we can leave that
right in front. No, it's happening right in front of us. Very shout out to my good friend Jeff Booth. He is starting a fund to invest in the Bitcoin ecosystem. But don't you think that a lot of those Bitcoin applications are going to be decentralized finance built on the Bitcoin blockchain that replaces traditional finance? Yes. Going to be great.
It's
How do all those financial products unwind though? Because they're just going to come.
Don't overthink things. Don't.
No. I'm not overthinking for my moves. I don't care. Out of interest sake, I'm just. I'm curious.
Who knows? But I don't think we. I think we know the trend.
I think it's a run for the doors. You know that analogy when you say if you have 1,000 people in a banquet hall and somebody screams fire.
Yeah.
And you see 2 people go out the door. Nobody really moves.
Yeah.
Nobody really moves. If you see 50 people go out the door, maybe it gets your attention. You see 200 people get up and run for the door. Everybody gets and runs. And I really think that's how it unwinds. And I know that might sound awful, but
the first
that's
warning shot.
But when the money's flowing, those types of large banks will do something to get in front of the money.
For you, though.
Like I'm talking like the investment banks in the U.S. They'll do something to get in front of the money in that area somewhere.
And it's going to
maybe they get destroyed. I don't know.
No, it'll be a Bitcoin. You know, they will here's what they'll do. Part of their thing will be starting up a Bitcoin bank within the context of the commercial bank, and they'll start it up, and it'll be woven in within their structure, and then their stock price will trade 100% based on the value of that Bitcoin endeavor. And someone will say, "Well, you got to separate that endeavor to get full value for that division, and the rest just trash it. That traditional finance is done." Okay, that's my opinion. But here, let's take a step back. All right, the day that banking died in Canada as a trust system, in my opinion, was the day that Trudeau froze bank accounts. Okay, that will have repercussions that will reverberate forever.
I can't tell you how many people came to us and said, "Hey guys, like, you know, I was kind of like looking at things before, but
I was on the fence with this Bitcoin stuff.
But now that not even Bitcoin, just in life, just the government stuff, but they're like, now that they've done this, like, what the heck?"
Yeah,
and these are people from like immigrants from like China that came in and they're like, "This is crazy. Like, I can't believe they did something like this. This is why my parents left China, is to get away from this type of thing."
Yes.
You know, like it was crazy. So a lot of people have changed their opinions because of that. I agree with you for sure.
So anyway, it'll be incremental. I think Tom was saying this, like it'll be slowly then suddenly, right? It's little by little by little, but then all of a sudden there'll be a flush. And that flush will be the 200 people running for the door in a crowded hall. The first 3, they were early movers.
They were the crazies. What's wrong with those people? They're crazy. What are they doing?
They were the ones that are extremely sensitive to shifts. They're the people that don't get brainwashed when someone.
They're the early adopters in any cycle.
Or let's just take it from an argument I was having today on Twitter. They're the people that don't believe that Canada is as free as it should be. So they leave the theater first.
Yeah,
but then everyone else is like, "Oh, Canada's still so free relative to everyone else in the world," which could be true, but it doesn't mean that we should be restricting our freedoms just because every other country in the world is restricting their freedom.
I think your comment on that about what Canada and Trudeau did to freeze those bank accounts reverberated around the world, because
no question.
I hear it from politicians in other countries. I hear it mentioned. It's always brought up now, the Canadian truckers and what happened to the Canadian truckers. Like that went global. That's a global thing.
Multiple people in European Parliament stood up and commented on and stuff,
including I believe one of them was the Minister of Croatia.
Yeah, he was a Croatian guy.
Hey, listen! Shout out to the Croatian community. My daughter's dating a Croatian kid right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Martin. I'm shouting you out, but I won't give your last name, but it's got a lot of letters in it. Okay,
that member of Parliament from Croatia is quite outspoken. He has no
like
problem.
Independent or something.
Oh,
Good on him. Good on him.
The equity market, we get asked about that a lot, and for your thoughts on the equity market.
Yeah, they're in big trouble right now.
Yeah, so short term and then medium term.
Well, look, I mean, you can't. The medium term will all be a question of how the Fed responds. Okay, so look, I think one and done. One of the reasons I think one and done, which doesn't mean that inflation comes down. It means we have bonds that will be forever returning. If anyone buys bonds beside the central bank, they'll be forever a horrible investment, because inflation will still be high because we haven't combated it. And the return on the bonds will be fixed because yield curve control. Okay, so the Fed, though, is absolutely important as to what happens with the equity market, because my thesis is we're going to go into QE infinity. QE infinity will be good for equities, but we're right now in quantitative tightening. Okay, And they're pretending they're going to do quantitative tightening and dial it up. And I don't think they can do it. But until they reverse course, the equity market is in bad shape.
And if they do QE to infinity, it's good for equities just because there's
harder
money
assets.
slushing around.
Yeah, they're harder assets. There's a chance that the cash flows increase, whereas bonds are contractual. Equities are not contractual. The upside cash flows flow to the equity holder, and that's your rewards, much like in your
okay. So yeah,
real estate.
so to sum that up for anyone listening, it's just like if the Fed hikes, then
they're going to hike one and done.
Yeah.
My
Sorry.
opinion,
When the Fed hikes,
but it might be two and done, and who cares? It won't be 9 and done. Okay,
Yeah.
It will not be 9 and done.
Yeah.
If it's 9,
But if they
run for
continue
the
doing
hills.
that, the bond market,
That's right.
the bond market kind of suffers. If they do QE to infinity, equities can take off, but the value of your dollars just completely
Debased.
deeply crashed.
Yeah.
So then I guess I'm just interested. Do you think the governments in North America, because I think they can pull this off in Europe, because Europe has a bit of a more friendly attitude towards government controls from what I see going to Europe.
They can't pull it off.
Could they pull off their central bank digital currency? Because I don't feel they can in North America. Like I don't think they're going to be able to pull.
I guess
off.
they could pull anything off in Europe if you're, the clown show that's called Europe. But
Yeah.
I mean, anything can happen.
Do you think they can pull that off in the U.S.? I don't think.
I think
they
in
can.
I think in Canada, if you're including Canada and North America, I think they can for sure. I think they have a harder time in the U.S.
There's for sure they'll have a harder time in the U.S. But did you see what Poilievre came out with yesterday?
Yeah.
It'll be part of his platform to stop CBDCs. So, and by the way, whether you believe the polls or not, it appears that it's resonating with some people. So,
Yeah, I haven't seen any of the polls. Is it? Yeah,
I'm not going to comment on it,
Yeah,
but I will tell you, if you looked at the polls, they're doing good.
Yeah, really. Yeah, because he did say that. I think he said that it would not.
But listen, it's all about the education part of this, people, okay? What they did already without CBDCs with the trucker convoy should give you extreme concern if they had CBDCs. It would be so simple to do it. They just turn it off. You can't spend your money. Tom Carrazza and Nick, you are blackballed. Your money will now expire.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah. And digital IDs, you don't think digital IDs are going to be the same?
It was
thing?
the
They're coming-
precursor.
Did you see
It
what
was
Bologna and Italy announced? I was just showing Nick.
Yeah.
You know what Bologna and Italy announced? They announced they're going to have the city of Bologna is going to have.
Is that
their
actually
own,
the name of a city?
Yeah.
Is it spelled
I've
like
been there.
Bologna? No, eh?
Yeah, no.
It's spelled like Bologna.
Bologna.
Well, that's how you
Bologna.
spell Bologna.
Yeah, it's
Well,
Bologna.
you don't remember.
It's a great place.
I gotta sing a song for you guys.
You got to pick.
My Bologna has a first name. It's OSCAR. My Bologna has a second name. It's
I
MEYER.
haven't heard that in like 35
My
years.
my bologna tastes something every day. BOLOGNA. That's how it ends, right? So that's
I know the Toys R Us one from when I was a kid. The Toys R Us kid jingle, like I'm a Toys R Us kid. I could sing the whole thing. I won't.
okay. But here,
yeah.
BOLOGNA.
It's funny what you
That's how you
remember.
spell bologna.
So they're starting a social. They're starting.
Pull it up. Don't you have it? Do you have it open?
Yeah, I have it.
It's super interesting to see this because this.
This is what? This is bologna?
Well, it's
Bologna?
Bologna.
Yeah. What did they
Bologna.
do?
But what they're doing is
I'm
bologna.
going to read this.
Yeah.
I'm going to read this to you. Starting in the fall of 2022, the city of Bologna, which is in Italy, will begin a new pilot project. Citizens who display good behavior, such as
Get out. Good behavior.
Listen.
correctly recycling or using public transportation, will be rewarded. One more paragraph. The Bologna municipality is deploying a smart citizen wallet, which will be the primary method for citizens to collect digital coins in exchange for behavioral changes.
Oh, good Lord.
Based on the given scores, a person can also receive discounts for local shops.
Yeah. All right. Look.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I mean, this is
So if you don't think this is coming,
stereotype.
it's here.
Well, it's not there
but
yet.
they're doing it
No.
under the cover of.
I think.
climate.
Are you
They're doing it
sure
under the
this?
cover-
Are you sure that's real?
I should say I'm not 100%.
Because I think it could be a goof, right? Especially that it's done in a place called Bologna, right?
Yeah.
Seriously,
Yeah.
it almost seems.
We'll look
Bologna is a
we'll
nice
look
city.
into it
Bologna
fur-
is it now? As a
we'll
report
look
about
into it
Bologna
further,
today,
but-
Massimo Bugani, the counselor for the digital agenda in the northern city.
Massimo, you're an idiot.
They're doing it under the guise of climate change. I guess they're trying to get people to take public
To
transit
recycle
Whatever.
public
and
transport.
recycling. And I think that's how they. Yeah, no,
That's their next blank check. The terrorism blank check has run out now, so they needed a new blank check.
Anyway, bologna.
So then, I guess, Greg, something that resonates with me a lot the way you articulate some of your messaging. It gives me a context and a framework to make some decisions, to understand the money system and Bitcoin at a different level, and not just at a speculative level. It's like, okay, I understand where this fits. And I just love the way that you break things down, because it really helps me a lot. And I know now you're doing more with education. So I want to make sure we talk about what you're doing a little bit with lookingglasseducation.com. Well, like what was the idea for this?
Can I just say one thing before we jump into this?
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks again for having me on the podcast, guys. We sort of jumped into this.
You're like a friend of the show.
Thank you. Well, you guys gave me your start, right? My start. So my daughter's still watching my subscriber count with
you're almost at 100. Hey, you're almost at 100,000.
You noticed it too, right?
Yeah,
I'm not. If I ever thought that 100,000 people would care what I had to say, perhaps most of them don't. But the point is, I'm flattered. But here's what I know. The Bitcoin conference of which you guys were at was monumental as far as I'm concerned. It was so good. But did you notice how seldom the price of Bitcoin was talked about versus the vision for Bitcoin?
Good point.
And that is so important, okay? Because now it's not a question of whether the price will go higher. That is a given. It's how can we build this system to be rock solid, to rescue the fiat system when it all comes tumbling down. And I don't want it to come tumbling down. But oh my God, 1 year ago to now has accelerated my belief that it's coming quicker than it ever was before. Okay? So don't consider the price, consider the insurance.
And the people at that conference, I enjoyed everybody's understanding of the money system discussions. It was much deeper than like, is the price, literally no one talked to me about the price moving. And it was all about, hey, did you hear what's happening with the Lightning Network? Hey, did you hear what's happening with this country?
Maybe because the price was coming down while we were there.
No, that's not true. Look, I don't think so, Nick. I respectfully though, there are guys like Jeff Booth who just does not care about the price. What he cares about is the safety net. And there's no way the fiat system rescues itself, but in the 0.0001% chance that it does, that's going to be a good thing. It's not going to happen, but we actually do not want Armageddon. We want an orderly transfer so that our kids are not living in so that our kids are living in a world that's better than the world that we came into, okay? But, that's a utopian viewpoint unless there is a solution to fiat, and that solution is Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think we've gone from the first time you were on the show, which was not that long ago, we've gone from talking about like, hey, how's the price of this thing going to work? And you taled about the asymmetry to it.
Yep.
Now I feel
like government reaction was a big one.
Government reaction.
Like what they're going to do. And hey, they're going to make, because a lot of back then it's okay, well, here's how they could outlaw it or make it illegal. Can they really and stuff? That was a big one. And that was about 2 years ago. And in those 2 years, that risk has diminished greatly.
And now I feel like there's some people, myself included, who are kind of participating in this new area of finance. And there's a bunch of people who are not. And I'm looking at them from this vantage point saying like, hey, come on over here. Check out what's going on over here.
It's
and
nice, but then some of them are just such lost causes that you're like, oh my God, I feel sorry for you right now. And guess what? I'm not going to waste my time trying to bring you over to our side.
It's difficult because I think when you're in the system and you try to see a new system from within the old system, it's kind of like being in the Matrix. Like you can't see it.
Yeah, but it's also kids that are on radio, like that guy that I was trying not to bring up today, but then said something on the radio like, the level of your obsession with freedom is directly correlated to how dumb you are. Okay, this was said by a 30-something-year-old radio jockey on a Canadian radio station today.
Yeah.
That's disgraceful.
I think people who will comment like that, unfortunately, don't know history. And they don't know when things dial up. We were, when things start turning up,
it's incremental.
Going. It's incremental, so you don't see it.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, listen,
they'll take away their freedom, and they'll quickly.
I'll tell you something. In the 1980s, Greg, I don't know if I've told you this before. We were with my relatives in Croatia. The country at the time was Yugoslavia, and they were singing songs in the car. And they told me as a Canadian kid, "Hey, we're about to get out of the car. Don't sing these songs anymore because because these songs can put you in jail.
Oh my God! Wow.
Like that existed in the 1980s. Like I witnessed that firsthand myself, right? So when I see some things in Canada where you're freezing bank accounts and people kind of just like laugh it off, I'm like, well, hold on a second. This is a trend that you actually want to stop right now. You want somebody, I think even Elon Musk said it the other day when he bought Twitter, is that, you want your enemy to be able to say things that you don't agree with, and you want them to have the right to say it.
I agree with that.
Right? So I think it's being a little short-sighted to not understand that the dial is turning up on freedom, and to joke about it is being very short-sighted.
You can't blame them. They have no context.
The context. That's the thing.
When you've had such a sheltered life, like we've lived in Canada. I mean, look, I'm 43 years old. And what have in these 43 years living in Canada, what really turmoil and stuff have I gone through or really experienced?
No, that's fair.
Nothing. Yep. So I have no, now we have some context from seeing things in Europe and stuff. If you remove that context and you don't want to look into it, you have no context. You're like, this is just normal. You think everyone lives like this. That article the other day that was sent over to us about the financial repression going on in Africa because of the way the systems, the French-speaking countries are set up using a currency that they have to go through France or everything. Yes. I didn't know any of that. Yeah. And like that just blew my mind. And that's the type of thing I read. And that's when I look at something like Bitcoin or anything that can solve it. And I'm like, that's where, to your point about the conference, that's why people care about it so much, because it can change a lot of things for a lot of people. And if you don't want to do it in your radio jock show or whoever you want to talk about, and it doesn't impact your life, good, it doesn't impact your life. But for hundreds of millions of people, that it's going to impact in a big way, because it's literal, like it's huge repression happening in these countries because of the way the system's set up.
My beef, and not to make it a personal thing, my beef is that people listen to this kid, and ultimately he is influencing, even if he influences 2 other people, that's 2 other people too many that he has influenced with his viewpoint.
Your passion for this stuff is so great. I sometimes, I gotta admit, just as your friend, sometimes I just I admire you for the way you push the message of this stuff, because it's important to all of us. It's important to you, but sometimes
I take it too much.
Sometimes I want you to take.
I appreciate that, bro. Yeah. Look, I will say this. It's given me I'm very open with the challenges that I've had, my health challenges. I've talked to you guys about it. I need to do this because I feel that I have been put in a situation that very few other people have lived, okay? No one else went to the CFO of the Royal Bank of Canada and said, we have a problem, and he looked at me and said, I know, don't tell anybody. I mean, you can't make that stuff up. I mean, this is a life event that you're just like, are you kidding me? And then all the things like, having lived through 4 successive financial crises, everyone perhaps lived through them that's my age. Of course they lived through them. But they didn't sit in the risk chair and saw how the world was unraveling. They didn't feel what it's like to go home and want to throw up, because it is so scary that the world is about to end. Okay? You might be doing a bunch of other stuff and you're so insulated from it, you don't realize it, and you're lucky. But by the same token, they can't talk about it because they don't know.
On the Friday night at the Bitcoin conference, you were gracious and really, I mean, you were over the top, and you got a bunch of people from Rockstar that we know into the Jordan Peterson, Robert Breedlove talk at the Fontainebleau. Is that how you say it?
Fontainebleau, yeah. Fontainebleau, yeah.
And Jordan Peterson said something that evening, and he said, it was something along the lines, I'm going to butcher it, but it was like, if you believe in something and you in your heart know it is right and useful for others, you have the obligation to go and share it. When I heard that, I don't know if you were in the room.
I didn't see any of it, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I was still trying to.
You were still getting people in.
Well, yes and no, but I also, it was a big.
But when he said that, I just thought of like what you're doing, what we're all doing in this community. Yeah. Like everybody feels a bit of an obligation. He says some stuff.
Well, he says some stuff that's very altruistic. The one thing I want to say, I said this with Jeff Booth and Preston Pish on
with John Vallis.
With John Vallis. That was a great.
Yeah, I'm only about 10 minutes in.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, look, the truth that we all experienced at the Bitcoin conference was just the genuine humility of the people at that conference. People who do want to help the world do better, okay? And it's not a zero-sum game. We're not trying to do better at the expense of anyone else. We're trying to do better, and everyone can participate. It's not a zero-sum game. Now, sometimes it feels like it's zero-sum when we're battling the Wall Street guys that are trading Bitcoin futures against equity volatility, but that'll iron itself out in the wash, okay? That's a short-term blip. They're going to get caught short, and they're going to get destroyed, and that's all good because that helps them learn from their mistakes and then embrace Bitcoin. Except if you're Peter Schiff, you're still too stupid to admit you made a mistake. So
we didn't bring up Peter Schiff yet.
But anyway,
let's talk about Looking Glass Education. Like, where did that idea come from? Who's involved? What are you guys doing?
So perfect. Thanks for the opportunity. Looking Glass Education was the genesis of it was the paper I wrote, thanks to Rockstar Real Estate, when I said, you know what, I'm going to put together this paper detailing my history in the risk chair. And there was a guy from Madison, Wisconsin, a trauma surgeon by the name of Jason Sansoni, okay? And just an aside on Jason. First of all, the guy sounds to me like I know he's a brilliant surgeon. And he believes, and he loves Bitcoin because he believes that trauma has social implications. Meaning, what is trauma? Well, some of it is gunshot wounds. Okay, so if you're in a social situation that you are likely to have guns or be wounded by a gun, think of that from a social context, not pointing out different types of communities or whatever, but even people that take unnecessary risks as trying to show off to their friends happen to be a social, I'm not going to say social distortion, but a social configuration that is a cause for, bad living, racing a car and getting into a car accident, walking across a bridge on the top of a guardrail, just cause all of these things are bad decisions that kids make, cause they, don't have the proper parenting, etc. Well, anyway, Jason Sansoni read my article. He's like, Foss, I love you on these podcasts, but I know zero about the bond market. Can you, and he hadn't read my paper. So he reads my paper and he's like, oh, this is awesome. Now I understand even less, he said, because, I speak in terminology. He said, I had to have the Google page open on the one hand reading your paper,
you
right?
You do, yeah.
So then he rewrote the paper. So he and I resubmitted the paper to Bitcoin Magazine. And he
came out really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know what? The guy is brilliant. And by the way, if he's working 60 hours a week already, putting people back together, that's what trauma surgeons do. They basically reconstruct people, right? And then he's putting another 10 or 15 hours a week into doing this. He cares, all right? So it was his initiative. And it was initially just him and me, I guess, or him and I, that were thinking of this. But we met so many cool people in the Bitcoin community globally that we started recruiting other people. So other people that are in it now, Seb Bunny, great kid from New Zealand who lives full-time in Whistler. I ski with him all winter. And he's a nutcase, but obviously just under 30 years old, already owns real estate properties and all the things that you were just talking about of your kids that are pretty darn smart. Also, he's jumped a freight train on a mountain bike. So if you ever want to see a crazy mountain biker, because he used to be a mountain bike instructor, he actually jumped a Canadian National Railway.
You shared it because I saw the video.
Dude, it's sick, okay? But that being said, please don't do that. You'll end up in Jason Sansoni's trauma unit or whatever. So there's Seb Bunny. There's a guy from Australia, Daz Bea. A brilliant guy who Seb and Daz are the younger guys putting together a lot of the writing. And we also have Safdina Moose's video production guy. His name is Max, goes by Pleb Music. And he's the guy that did that music video for me. It's Only Mathematics.
No, that's
Mathematics.
That guy.
Okay, so we have those four people. And then our two latest recruits are this, and they're very important recruits. James Lavish, who's become a real good friend of mine. We're both hedge fund guys, so we immediately hit it off. Not to mention he went to Yale, I went to Cornell, and so we're both Ivy League failures. Okay, fuck Ivy League people. Okay, but that being said, they still have positions of influence in the world. So we're both Ivy Leaguers. I hang out with him in Las Vegas. We've hung out together in Miami, and I just have a ton of time for him. And he was a recruit, and then our final recruit, and this is so important, Dahlia from Colombia, who South American wants to translate all of our research from lookingglasseducation.com into Spanish. And she's already working in El Salvador with the school system in El Salvador. So Looking Glass Education donated 1 Bitcoin to the education system in El Salvador.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so and we want to use this to try and spread the knowledge that Seb and Daz have put together. James Lavish is a wealth of knowledge. There's myself and Jason Sansoni that are able to put some stuff together. But really, the guys that are doing all the work are Seb and Daz.
And the course content on there, that foundation course, is about bond.
It's about everything they don't teach you in traditional finance. So inflation, fiat currencies, the bond market, equity, even things like. James Lavish has done stuff on repos and some of the more esoteric parts of the inner workings.
A nice breakdown, I think, of yield curve control.
Yeah. So look, and that's him, right? So these are all friends of mine that I've gotten to know. That I, much like Jeff Booth, I'm very blessed to get to, and you guys, by the way. Like, look, I never would have met any of these people if it wasn't for Bitcoin, and we are all rowing in the same direction. You may think that we're selfish people, and there's got to be selfish people. There's, the world is full of takers. It wouldn't be surprising that the Bitcoin community has some takers in it, but I'll go on the record as saying I've never seen so many givers in my life as people in the Bitcoin community.
Same.
Okay. Yeah. And they truly want to do better and have the world as a better place. And so do I, because I have 3 kids and you guys have kids too. And that's all it's about.
So on Looking Glass Education, these are courses that are going to come out,
There's a full course right now. It takes about 3 hours to get through the whole thing.
So you register for the course and you can get access to that.
So lookingglasseducation.com. Okay. And then on Twitter, please follow it on Twitter. Followers help at lookingglassedu. Okay. So 2 G's, right? Looking and then glass education.com.
The plan is the first course, is it free foundation?
Everything's
course?
free.
That's what everything's free.
Yeah.
And then over time, more will be added?
Who knows?
Or
here's what I know.
This course?
We'll refine it. It'll be timeless education, though. It's not like it goes out of style, right? This stuff is
I looked
true
at the
now.
Chapters, everyone calls it. Excellent.
Thank you. You know what? There might be a time when the kids try and monetize it. They need to earn a living. As soon as they do, I will not be involved. Okay, I am not ever going to try and make any money off of any of this stuff, but I'll lend my my follower account and everything like that, right? But the day that we start charging for education, which may be the right way to do it, because a lot of people say, "Oh, you get stuff for free; it can't be any good." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's what I would say: I want this education and people to get it, but I will never be there to make a nickel off of this. And it's not because I'm trying to be. What I'm trying to be is I know how I can make money in other things. I don't need to make money in Looking Glass Education.
And I just want to go through this because we get a lot of questions on this subject. And just so everyone listening gets the content of this, and there's different modules on this course. And then there's some of the topics are inflation, the debt burden, the byproducts of inflation and debt, the big trilemma. What do we do? Equities, real estate, bonds, gold, Bitcoin. So you're covering a lot of stuff that I think it gives the basis for everyone to have how we were talking earlier that I really thank you for giving me a framework and context to understand the bond market and debt. This is kind of like the basis you need to build those frameworks
now, and we're trying to keep it simple. The problem is there's some people that even think that is too complex, what we're putting together. And the boys that are writing it are like, oh my God, I can't make it much more simple than this. But look, I mean, it comes with time. It's like being immersed in Bitcoin. I've studied Bitcoin for I'm going to say over 1,000 hours. And I'm still learning. It doesn't mean, you got to start somewhere. I'm just noticing the price of tomorrow on your bookshelf.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely one of my favorites. There's a gentleman in Toronto by the name of young guy in his 20s, Kevin Rook. We've had him on here. He does a lot of stuff with the Lightning work. Okay. And he does a great, a great job sharing the Lightning network's development and a lot of the people building on the Lightning network. Yeah. At some point, you two will cross.
Well, I need to put him in touch with my buddies Ibex Mercado, right? So did I told you I invested in Ibex Mercado.
Oh,
those are the kids from Guatemala that.
Oh, that's right. Sorry,
but then they became, they were 3-hour drive from El Salvador. When Jack Mahler says we're onboarding a country, they go, well, Guatemala's going to have to wait. I'm going to go and do it in El Salvador because it's endorsed by the government, right? Well, listen, I don't know if you saw on the floor of the exposition at the conference, but they had the biggest booth. They were right by the volcano. Their booth was almost bigger than the volcano, okay? A year ago, these guys had a dream. 360 days later, and it's actually less than that because last year's conference was in June, these guys just got a contract to onboard the city of Miami. Now, no disrespect to El Salvador, but the GDP of the greater Miami area has got to be 10 times that
Sure.
of El Salvador. Okay? This is how quickly things are moving.
Yeah, exciting times, man. Greg, yeah, I don't know how to thank you, and I just really
Don't.
appreciate
You
that
don't
you
have
take
to.
the. I know how busy you are and how much
I am and I'm not.
on your
I
time.
I'm going to have to make sure everyone understands. I was paddleboarding this morning and I'm going to the Jays game this afternoon, or tonight.
Houston.
So
I think it's Houston.
it is.
tonight.
Yeah.
Cool.
But it's in Toronto, luckily.
Yeah.
We were the guy I work with. A shout out to my good friends and my business partners at Validus Power. We were all getting set to go to the Jays game last Friday, but on the Thursday night, I said to my partner, buddy, I can't go, but I'm going to send my daughter and her Croatian boyfriend. They're going to have a blast. Luckily, the Croatian boyfriend double checked and verified that, in fact, the Blue Jays weren't in town next Friday night, and it's this Friday night. So here's the funny thing. My business partner can't go, so now I have all 8 tickets. So I'm bringing the whole
cool.
fam,
Awesome.
the whole fam damily this time.
Yeah, and I know you're a massive Leafs fan, so the playoffs. I know how big of a Leafs fan you are. So the playoffs start next week. You don't have to say it.
You know who works?
You
You know who works on my floor though? A shout out to him, ex-Leaf Peter Holland. So
Yeah, that's right. I saw
works.
that.
He
Yeah,
works
yeah.
with Sat Street, and great kid, 30 years old. Decided hockey had given him everything he wanted from the hockey thing, and now he said the other day, where actually it was Chris Johnson who I've met. I think we probably both met Chris Johnson up in
He's actually
Osante
coming on
Brewery.
this podcast at some
Is
point.
Chris
We
Johnson?
haven't booked.
Well, it was a great article. He goes, Pete Holland shades the blue and white for the only color he likes better than blue and white is the color orange. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah, well, you got your colors wrong, folks. It's the bleu, blanc, et rouge. Okay, that's les habitants.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so
I can't believe he's allowed to say that.
We'll edit that
Fuck,
out.
it's
We'll
Greg.
take that
No,
out.
it's Greg. He's allowed. He's allowed.
all right, fellas.
So thank you so much.
Hey, man, my pleasure. Thanks again for having me. And reach out to me, any of your listeners. If you guys have questions, please follow Looking Glass Education. Let your kids know about it. It's a process, people, but we are changing the world. And we're doing it because it's the right thing to do. We have too many politicians who failed mathematics, and some of them have learning disabilities, and that's no excuse. You should not be running a $2 trillion economy when you have a mathematical disability. Sorry, Trudeau, you don't cut it, dude. I love you guys.
Appreciate you, Greg.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.